The EFL football season is officially over in terms of the league format, but of course now it is the most exciting time of the season for many. It is playoff season. Today we are going to be discussing all the potential playoffs, all the confirmed playoffs, of course, for both the Championship as well as League One and League Two, giving our honest predictions about who is going to go up and who is going to make it to the big time. Let's kick things off. Of course, we've got to start with the Championship. What a brilliant, brilliant end of the season. Reese, I know you like to call it the best league in the world, and on that evidence on Saturday, it's hard to argue. I mean, we had a league drama. We had two teams finishing on 100 points to win the league. The playoffs were undecided. Five teams still could have got the playoff spots. And then even in the relegation zone, five teams could have still gone down on the day. So, Reese, we'll come to you first. Out of the four teams, give us some of your thoughts on the teams who made the playoffs in the championship.
Yep, so all four teams are, well, very good teams, I suppose, is the right thing to say. We've got Sheffield United, who were relegated last year. You could probably argue are the favourites, whether the bookies say that or not. They've recruited the best. They've probably got the manager that's best for it. However, the way they threw it away towards the end of the season would have alarm bells ringing because the other teams can be a match for him. We're also looking here at Sunderland, who had their place secured a very long time ago, but since then seem to have stopped caring, which is understandable. Maybe they're putting all their eggs in one basket. But to me, the young players they've got, the mentality isn't there. So I'm worried that there's probably a step too far for them. Then, of course, we got Frank Lampard's Coventry, who got there on the final day themselves. Many would argue Coventry should have been in the playoffs anyway from the start of the season, but their horror start to this season kind of derailed that. So Frank Lampard did well to get them in there. And then, of course, got Bristol City, who made bloody hard work of it, getting thrashed by Leeds. Then, of course, drawing to relegation threat and Preston. They're probably the team who I think many would argue don't really have a chance, but they're there. You know, if they catch Sheffield United on a bad day, what they got home advantage first, so got to make the most of that, I suppose. But yeah, four good teams, four potentially unpredictable games. But yeah, I think it's going to be intriguing how the first legs play out.
Yeah, I think to add to that as well, just in terms of where the bookies have it in terms of odds, Sheffield United, as you said, are the favourites for, I guess, for obvious reasons. Then they've got Sunderland, then Coventry, then Bristol City. I don't 100% agree on your point around Coventry. I don't think they would have expected playoffs at the start of the season. Obviously, it's always a dream of these teams, but I don't think they were anticipated to be in that position. Very similar with Bristol City. They have really, I think, gone against the odds even to get here. So, I mean, for one of those to win it, it would be incredible, I think, to be honest. But yeah, you got to look at Sheffield United and go, they're the favourites. Jamie, what's your thoughts on some of these teams?
Well, I think it's teams that are looking to go into the Premier League with all dreadful form, which is really unusual. You expect at least sort of one team to be high and flying because Sheffield United, two wins in seven. This is why they've fallen off from Burnley and Leeds. Sunderland have lost the last six. Like that's appalling form. You've got Coventry who have lost to two teams in the relegation battle in the last three games. They're games that probably they're expected to win, especially as the form sort of had turned around under Lampard. And then Bristol City had only won one in five, and that was against Sunderland, funnily enough, when they had 10 men. So really, all of these teams, you can't go. There's a clear favourite. There's a clear team playing really well. It's it's all a bit of a shambles by them all, where they've all not fumbled over the line, but they kind of have in terms of their form. Because I know you could say with the sort of Sunderland race, you sort of said it looks like they stopped caring. You don't want to go in. You shouldn't want to go into the playoffs with six losses in a row. It's mad. It's pretty mad having stuff like that going
But they'd
into
already
it.
booked their spot, haven't they?
They might have
I
but
think that's
yeah,
what they've done is relax and not worry about injuries. But
But it's
how they're going to
hard.
get momentum behind them is the issue.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was going to say. Like, I'm a massive believer in momentum in football, and yes, they'll feel like this is a bigger game. They'll have that big game buzz about it when they face Coventry, but for Sunderland, you look and go, well, the last result when they played away to Coventry was 3-0. They lost 3-0. Like, yes, you can say they're on the beach, whatever, whatever, but that's not a good confidence builder when you don't know what winning a game. Like, they've won 2 games since March. Like, you can say what you want, but that is not good, whether you're on the beach or not. There's no benefit to losing every week, week in, week out. And as Jamie said, six losses in a row. Like, you'd
That's
start to doubt
relegation
yourself.
form.
It,
That's
it literally
relegation
is.
form, not
The team,
promotion form.
yeah. Well,
I
all
know
the
it
teams
does.
are in better form that got
Yeah,
relegated.
yeah, exactly. Like, I know it technically doesn't matter because they got in the playoffs. That's the main point.
Yeah,
They were never going to catch Sheffield United to get that third place, so their sort of position was never going to improve. But I wouldn't want to be going into the playoffs to get into the Premier League, where we're finding out promoted teams are finding it hard enough already to have 6 losses in a row. That's I think it's just mental. So the fact that they've got to go and play Coventry, okay, they get the home. I think they get the home advantage second, so that's the slight benefit. But even that's even minor these days. So it is a bit of a shock to me, really, that all of these teams have made it because there was no outstanding massive team in form. I guess the biggest form here is probably Coventry. But like I said, losing two to the two like nearly relegated teams, one of them was relegated, shows they possibly don't have they basically won't win the games they've meant to, possibly against a Sunderland side who have lost 6 in a row. And that could be a massive problem for them, even though I know Jordan, you will be rooting for Lampard in this,
100%.
but the last sort of 3 games weren't really good enough when their position wasn't guaranteed. They needed to win these games to certainly get over the line. So yeah, I'd say it's a bit concerning for all 4 teams, which actually makes it quite an entertaining watch.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it
think
does.
I think before we look at Sheffield United, I think this game will be determined in the home leg. I think Coventry really have to make the most of this. I mean, I think they've only really got Jay De Silva missing, but Sunderland will bring back a lot of the big guns from Mundell up front. Dan Ballard, who I know returned at QPR, who's really important to them. You've got Joe Bellingham as well. They've got the players, but then Coventry may have the edge because they've not lost to them this season. For those of you that don't know, geographically, this isn't a rivalry, but I know the fans aren't very keen on each other, so it adds a little bit of spice to this game as well. But I think it does go down to the first leg. Frank Lampard's done this before. Remember, he knocked Leeds out with Derby, and many thought. I think Leeds had even won the first leg at Pride Park, but so he's capable of turning it around, and I do expect him to probably beat Sunderland over the 2 legs. I think it'll be a nervy second leg for him, but I think they'll hold it.
Yeah, and let's take a minute to obviously acknowledge the job he's done. I mean, when he took Coventry over, they were 4 or 5 points off relegation. Completely different narrative. And we have seen this before in the Championship. We've seen, kind of remember Forest with I think it was Steve Cooper. They were in a similar position where they were basically relegation fodder. And he ended up getting them promoted. And I mean, look where they are now. So maybe with Coventry, they're definitely not got the same resources. We've got to acknowledge that. But with the job Lampard's done, with that form, that belief that he's instilled in them, you never know. And I do in terms of predictions. I know we're not doing predictions for every leg. I do actually think Coventry could get through against Sunderland just based on kind of form, belief, confidence, momentum. I mean, as for the final, it's anyone's guess, but yeah, I think it's really interesting. And when you look at the 4 teams, and I know we've said it, I don't know the exact stat on it, but the third in terms of the amount of times the team in third place go up, it's not more than 25%, which I think is really interesting because if you look at these points, right, Sheffield United were basically in that title race. Like they were as good as Burnley and Leeds in theory, who have both finished on 100 points, both Centurions, both finished in ridiculous form in the season. So if we take everything, if we strip everything back and put form aside, Sheffield United really should be going up here. Like they should. They showed for 90% of the season they are up there with the Leeds and Burnley. So
the argument sort of against the playoffs, if that makes sense, because the third best team in the 42 games doesn't always go up, and I'm not saying it for every sort of season. Sometimes it is a point in between third and fourth, but it's sort of like the Premier League. Whoever wins the title deserves to. It's where you finish in the league, you deserve to finish in the league. So it is kind of a harsh sort of reality of the playoffs where, but it's something that keeps the league exciting, I believe. Because if you're only focusing on the top two or top three, then the likes of Bristol City, or Sunderland, and Coventry would have had nothing to fight for so long. So it can be sort of an argument, and sort of like the team that finishes in third are slightly hard done by. Not that they should have got the top two because Leeds and Burnley kicked on and Sheffield United didn't, but it isn't. I wouldn't say it's an issue because I think it does add to the game and everyone knows the rules before. But it is something that sort of Sheffield United technically do deserve to be in the Premier League compared to all the teams below them.
yeah,
But that
I know
may
what you
not play
mean.
out
Yeah,
because of the next three games. Well, two or three games for them, they may not deserve it. It's then into a knockout stage, isn't it? Obviously.
yeah, I know what you mean because at the end of the day, they're what 14 points clear of fourth place. So there is a clear gap in quality. But at the end of the day, like the playoffs are there. It's not like it's been a surprise. They dropped off, so that's just how it works. I definitely wouldn't want to get rid of the playoffs personally. I absolutely love the playoffs, so I don't ever want to see that go. But they dropped off when it mattered. I guess you could argue, right? So they don't deserve to be in the Prem yet until they go and you know they've forced themselves to do it the hard way. So now they've got
Yeah.
to deliver.
Well, you get 100 million quid for doing it, don't you, in the championship? So it's not all bad. But looking at these two teams, I mean, what? I don't think Sheffield United have lost to Bristol City in about 7 games. Um, Bristol City, like I said, made hard work of getting in here. This team were known as the most boring in the championship because they kept finishing 12th or 13th every year. They've got their chance, but they made such hard work of it. I think Sheffield United have been there and done it. I think they'll get this job done. Um, I was worried for Sheffield United at the start of the season because I didn't see who they were going to bring in, but he's recruited fantastically well with Mike Cooper, Burrows as well. They've surprised, Tyrese Campbell, surprised a lot of people. Are they Premier League players? They'll probably be okay, but that's something to worry about if they do get promoted because, £100 million in the bank, you can do a lot with it. I expect the first leg to probably be a draw at Ashton Gate, and then Sheffield, which I think Sheffield United will go there for the draw. Then they'll go and take them to Bramall Lane and beat them, I think, quite comfortably. I think this would be quite tough, a step too far for Bristol City, but you can't knock their achievement. But to me, Bristol City have been too up and down this season to be able to have a real impact in these sort of one-off games, as they call them. So, yeah, I think Sheffield United will do this over 2 legs.
Right. Okay. Then who's actually going to go up then? Let's just go with a full-on
Yeah.
prediction.
Sheffield United.
Really? Okay. Sheffield United. Jordan, I have a inkling on who you're going to pick.
Well, I can tell you who I want to pick. No, look. Obviously, yeah. Look, I said it on all our platforms. Basically, Lampard's done a phenomenal job. Coventry shouldn't be here to some degree. I don't think. Ridiculous form, great momentum, and as I said, he's proven what I've said all along that he is a good football manager. Biggest false narrative in football that he wasn't a good manager. He's proven it now. Um, Jack Rodoni as well. What a player! He's an actual Chelsea fan, and he was one scoring the goals to get them to the playoffs. But yeah, I think Coventry will get to the final. I think they will beat Sunderland based on momentum. I think to Reese's point, Sheffield United, I just can't see Bristol City getting past them, to be honest. But I do, yeah, unfortunately, head over heart, I think Sheffield United will do it. They're just, again, I know it doesn't always work out that way, but they're effectively 20 points clear of these other teams, really. And I'm writing off Sunderland just because of the form. So, yeah, regretfully, I'm going to have to pick Sheffield United.
Well, I think that's three for three. I'm going with Sheffield United, but my sort of twist is I think Sunderland knock out Coventry, despite the form, because I think then Coventry will possibly go in. as sort of favourites in a few of these games because of the form. Maybe not in the bookies exactly, but like people expect them to win, and they've shown a few times they're not actually doing that in it. But yeah, Sheffield United, I think, are just better than the other three teams in this.
Okay, let's move on to League One. So again, not as much drama in terms of what happened in the league, but again, we've seen particularly in the last few weeks there was a lot of movements. So the final positions were Stockport, Charlton, Wycombe, and Leyton Orient as well. Now, kind of contrary to what we've just said for the Championship, there was a bit better form for these teams in terms of how they finished. So again, Stockport, really everyone apart from Wycombe, I'd say ended the season in good form. So I guess we can't use our same arguments um, for League One. And obviously, Stockport will play Leyton Orient, Charlton will play Wycombe. Reese, will come back to you again. How do you feel about League One? How do you see this playing out?
This is the playoff one I'm actually most interested in. All four teams are capable of beating each other in this one. Someone who's followed League One very closely, a lot of these teams are quite up and down. A lot of these teams, I mean, we would have expected these teams to be around here, if not fighting for the automatic promotions. So it's it's definitely very interesting. I know that Leyton Orient obviously got their place on the last day. Stockport pushed very close to automatic promotion. Wycombe, as we know, were in the top two, money bags. Wycombe, we should call them, because they were in the top two for a very long time before sliding. A lot of that's obviously losing their manager. And then we've got Nathan Jones's Charlton, who have shown a lot of passion, a lot of grit to be where they are. Looking at it, you'd have to probably say Stockport are the favourites. They lost the least games out of the four. But like I said, they seem to lose silly games. Um, However, Leyton Orient have the league's top scorer in Charlie Kelman. So they're just as capable of upsetting. However, losing 16 games domestically and only drawing six suggests that it's either win or loss for Leyton Orient. So Stockport really can play that to their advantage. Wycombe have slid away too much now. I'd fear for them. I think Charlton and their momentum, and if I'm not mistaken, Charlton even beat Wycombe as well just before. So that would give a real a big edge for me. But this is definitely the most enticing where all teams have a very even chance.
Yeah, well, what you're saying with the Charlton Wycombe, Charlton beat Wycombe 4-0 away. So it wasn't like, it was sort of a result that Wycombe kind of needed to win to keep in with Wrexham to try and get the automatic playoffs. And it's just sort of gone a bit downhill from them, from being third, looking to get second, they then drop all the way down to fifth. It's quite a big fall so quickly, sort of in like the last sort of three games it was. Charlton, I think they did, like I think you said they grinded quite well, and then the big win against Wycombe actually put them in slight contention to go for the automatics, but then Wrexham beat them, and
Mm.
that's where Wrexham have got the automatic. Stockport, obviously, they came up last year, so they know how to sort of be in this position, battling for it, and they've been very good. Obviously, they do have some money as well. It's not these teams are, you know, a sort of rags to sort of get to the top kind of thing. They all have a bit of riches in them. But Stockport, yeah, unbeaten in the last eight. Like they're the complete opposite of what we were seeing in the Championship, really. Like I said, Charlton being in very good form. Wycombe are the ones who have fallen off, and Leyton Orient, they've won their last five. Like if you want to get into your playoffs, that's the kind of form you need to get
I think
in.
it's
That's
actually
what
six in a row, by the way, for them.
of
Six in a row.
six.
So like that is a ridiculous way for
That's the
they're
form
not.
you want to. That's
Yeah,
the form you want
yeah,
to
yeah,
see. You don't want Sunderland's losing six in a
yeah.
row. You want the winning six. I know it was a bit different when Leighton Orient needed to do that to get to the last playoff places, but that's the form you want to be in. You around Leighton Orient going to the games, they're buzzing. They've won the last six. They're confident. They're going Stockport's next. Okay, Stockport's a decent team, but we've won our last one. Why can't we go and beat them? That's the mentality you have and the momentum with winning the six. So I think it's a very good side. And as Reece said, top goal scorer in the league, that does matter massively in these sort of games. So I think both of these sort of games, and then whoever is in the final, it's going to be really entertaining.
Should we just make our predictions now? Um, I'll start, and I'm going to go a little bit rogue here. Well, I am going to go very rogue actually, because I'm going to pick the underdogs completely. So I, again, I'm a big believer in confidence and momentum. I know Stockport kind of have momentum because they've not lost in eight, but I think Leyton Orient are going to do it. I know that's a ridiculous prediction. What I would say is the two games this season, weirdly, both teams have won away. Stockport beat Leyton Orient away, but crucially, Leyton Orient won 4-1 away at Stockport earlier in the season. I'm not saying they're going to do it again, but again, you talk about belief, you talk about the form, you talk about everything. I think Leyton Orient are just on one of those kind of rides that they're just enjoying it. They're having fun. Maybe they shouldn't be where they are, but there's just that kind of relentless belief, and it's kind of what I see Coventry have, where they won, I think, eight, 9 games in a row, or it. It's just that belief and momentum in football, particularly in these leagues where the gap in quality isn't that high. So again, I kind of picking two upsets in a row because they'd be underdogs in both games. But yeah, I'm going to go Leyton Orient.
I'm going to go the opposite. I know this is me picking two third places in a row, but yeah, I'm going with Stockport. I think they even beat Wickham on the last day of the season. I just sort of the unbeaten run, so that's where I kind of it counteracts the Leyton Orient winning six. Stockport not losing as well means they're both in very good form. So that's where I think the quality Stockport have is just a bit above Leyton Orient. But yeah, so I'm going with Stockport, and I think Charlton will beat Wickham. I think Wickham are on a sort of a bit of a sad, slippery slope at the end of the season.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I can't work this out. I'm sort of I would like to root for Leyton Orient, but then I look at Stockport County. I think they might be too strong. But then, like I said, Stockport they lost at home to Wickham 5-0. Do you know what I mean? They drew with Charlton twice, but then they've beaten Wickham and then they've beaten Leyton Orient once. It just goes to show that what Stockport are you going to get? But the reality is when it comes towards the end of the season, that's when I suppose you've got to look at it. And I think Stockport have been the most consistent out of the lot. I think they will beat Leyton Orient over two legs, and I think it'd be quite an exciting one. Again, I think the game at Brisbane Road will be massive, and how teams deal with that. I think Stockport wouldn't mind so much if they took a 1-0 defeat, but I think they've got to go there and at least hope for a draw. Wickham to me have drastically slid. They lost Bloomfield to to Luton Town. They took Mike Dodds. It's not quite worked out. It's not looking good for them. And I think Nathan Jones's Charlton are so passionate. If you look at how much he's so proud of his team, I think they'll beat him over two legs. And I think the final between Charlton and Stockport will see Charlton go up. I just think Charlton will have too much for them, and that's no dis. I think Stockport will go up automatically next season, but I just think Charlton will have the most over these playoff games.
All right, there you go. Some different predictions. That's nice to see. Well, just a point we mentioned, obviously the gap in the championship. There is only 9 points in League One separating these four teams, so arguably even more all to play for. Let's move on. Last but not least, to League Two. So again, we did see some very, very very late drama. Bradford obviously nicking in the 97th minute. Uh, Promotion, automatic promotion over Walsall. Fans were on the pitch before the game even ended. It was all a bit of drama. I think the goal scorer got sent off. Absolutely brilliant scenes. But congratulations to Bradford, I guess, first and foremost. But let's talk about it. I just touched on 7 points separating. I think it was 9 points, but 7 points separate these four teams. So we've got Walsall, Wimbledon, Notts County, and Chesterfield. Again, Chesterfield on the last day getting the win, and Salford bottling it. So Chesterfield again flying in confidence, but I guess it's back to no form because again, really only Chesterfield the team with any semblance of form. Walsall, Wimbledon, and Notts County with just one win in their last 5 games. So again, there's really no teams actually with really any form in this league, which is pretty remarkable. So I think you'd argue this is probably the most open of all the leagues. So I'll just go through the bookies' favourites in order: Notts County, Walsall, Wimbledon, and Chesterfield. Reese, talk us through your thoughts. Who do you think is going up and why?
Just building on what you said, Chesterfield are the only team with a bit of form going into here. All these other teams had an opportunity to get automatic and they all threw it away, particularly Walsall, who had a 13-point lead at the top, like first from second until January, until they, I mean, if you want to see a definition of a one-man team, it was them. It was Nathan Lowe on loan from Stoke, who had 18 goals in 30 appearances. Stoke recalled him, and since then it's been a disaster. Um, so the Sadlers, who are managed by Matt Sadler, funnily enough, have fallen off completely. Absolute fallen off a cliff. I mean, they're still falling off a cliff. I mean, they haven't even hit the ground yet, and it's that bad. However, they did get a win at Crewe on the last game. You can say there's not much to look into that, but they took it to the last game and got the result they needed. And if Bradford didn't get that goal, Walsall would have taken their place. Many would have said, you don't deserve it, but of course they do because the league doesn't lie. The table doesn't lie, rather. So Walsall did get there in the end, and I'd expect them to probably get over the course of these games. But I think Chesterfield might actually beat them over 2 legs. I think Chesterfield are a very good side, and then we've got Wimbledon and Notts County. That's a straight up gut check. That's going to be just whoever holds their nerves out between the two. You'd have to go with Notts County because they've got two of their players in the top three goal scorers in McGoldrick and Jatta. They've probably got the firepower to do it, but I wasn't blown away by them losing at home to Doncaster at the weekend. But maybe they had one eye on the playoffs anyway. I suspect a Notts County Chesterfield final. So there's a local derby vibe to that. And I think Notts County will nick it. Only just though.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with this, to be honest. Um, I've not really got a feeling about any of the teams. I just think it's so tight. All the teams are so unpredictable. Um, I'm gonna go again, as I said, I don't feel confident about this, to be honest. I'm gonna go Notts County as well. Um, I can't really justify it, to be honest. I don't have much of a case as to why, but I just think they've got that bit of extra quality when it matters, and I think they'll weirdly feel more entitled to go up. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, you look at Warsaw, and I think when a team completely drops out the race, gets grimmed on the last day and the last minute, I just think that does affect you. And a lot of teams will say, "Oh, we could get up and go again," but I do think that's really gonna hurt them, and I do think that will have a knock on their confidence personally. And then, as I said in the final, again, it's going to be a coin flip. But yeah, I've got to pick someone, so I'm going to pick Notts County. But I can't say I'm confident.
It was happened to Northampton, didn't it, a couple of years ago? What was it? They were third, and Bristol Rovers needed a 7 goal swing, and Bristol Rovers won 7-0, and Notts County just couldn't recover from that, and they were knocked straight out of the playoffs. So yeah, this goes to show how that would really hurt. But they've made the issues for themselves. I mean, they only had to win one more game between those games, and they fell off a cliff completely.
Yeah, like Walsall being in here is sort of like you're because even though they won against Crewe, it felt like a loss because they didn't get the automatic promotions. And the last time they won a game before that was the 22nd of Feb. But that's
That's crazy.
ridiculous. Like all they needed was one win in 2 full months of football. It, it's really terrible, and the fact that they were 13 points clear at one point, it's an utter sort of really it's a disgraceful that's not relegation form, that's bottom of the league relegation form. And if it all came down to that sort of, I guess, sort of the one player that Stoke recalled, how good is he if you can put your team 13 points clear and they just can't do anything on? And how bad is everyone else? Because if they're going to get promoted, they're going to only have the players who are in the form of 2 wins since 22nd of Feb. So really, it's dreadful, really. But overall, I'm gonna go with Notts County. I'm gonna go with the same final as sort of you two, Notts County and Chesterfield. But I'm gonna go with a Chesterfield win.
There you go. All right. Well, that is all our predictions. Good to see we disagree on some of them. As always, guys, if you've got this far, hit us up in the comments. Who do you think is going up in every single league? But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.